Think of this episode as a pizza opera in 3 acts. Act 1, the different pizza styles in my order of preference. Act 2, a philosophical pizza thought or question or a pizza riddle, perhaps? I don't know. You'll see. I'm going to list my personal favorite pizza places in the world. This is not a game, all right? I'm going to get support for this list. I'm going to take heat for this list. This is serious business. Obviously, there's tons of different pizza styles. In doing research, I found some that I didn't even know existed. Everybody's got their own twist on things. You and your Uncle Billy like to make a pineapple upside down pizza cake, and well, that doesn't count, okay? I'm talking about like styles that exist that people actually know exist, that people partake in, that restaurants base their business around, okay? Those are real styles of pizza. And I'm gonna give you my order of preference. My personal favorite is New York style. Now, I'm not going to go through the history of pizza here because you can look it up online, and I don't want to bore you. I mean, you can go back to the ancient Greeks who were cooking flatbread, which is kind of like pizza. But the modern day pizza started in Naples in the 16th century. They were cooking it like thin. It was big floppy pieces. They were selling on the streets. It was mostly for poor people or workers. I think they were taking it on the go. It was called Neapolitan style, and that's basically where New York style came from. It's big, hand-tossed, thin crust, floppy pieces, big pieces, delicious. That's my personal favorite. I grew up in Michigan, not far from Detroit. I don't remember anybody talking about Detroit-style pizza. That seems like it's been happening in the last like 10 years or so. I'm not sure, at least outside of Detroit proper. But I was eating Detroit-style pizza. Remember when Little Caesars had the pizza, but then they did the square? That to me tasted like, I believe, like, now I know you're cringing if you're from Detroit. I know, but it was close because it had like the crispy edges and it was pan and whatever. It was pan. I think that's what it was, pan. Anyway, Detroit style is cooked in a pan, square, deep dish, but with the dough has got to be a little bit airy, and then the cheese has to be on the edges where it goes down into the crust. That's what Detroit style is. Now, if you watch Food Network or something, they'll do that process, but then they'll also ladle the sauce on after they cook it. I'm not sure about that one. I mean, some places might do that. That might be something you can request, or you might get at a certain place. But I think for the most part, it's just pan, square, with a certain type of crust, with the cheese on the edge to make sure it goes down with the crust. If you ask anyone in the world what Chicago style is, what they're going to say is deep dish with the flipping of the cheese in the sauce. Now, I know that makes native Chicagoans kind of cringe a little bit, because native Chicagoans will say that actual Chicago style pizza is thin crust, tavern cut, which is like a round pie cut square. Obviously the outside's not going to be square, but and no inversion of the cheese in the sauce. Okay, so yes, that might be the actual authentic Chicago style pizza for someone who's from there, but tourists think that it's deep dish with the inversion. Look, we don't think Santa Claus doesn't exist, but we have effigies of him everywhere, and tens of millions of people believe in him, so he exists as far as we're concerned. So you're gonna have to say Chicago style pizza is 2: deep dish, inversion, and then thin crust, tavern cut, no inversion. If I order a pizza for myself one night and I eat half of it and I save the other half and I eat it the next day for lunch, is that having pizza twice that week, or does it still count as once? In other words, does the rest of the pizza count as a leftover, or is that having pizza again? Now, if I eat the leftovers for breakfast, it's for sure like a tag along to the previous meal. But what if I make it another meal? Like, what if I waited 2 days and put it in the fridge and then reheated it and had the whole thing again? Does that count as twice? Now, if I order a small pizza and I eat the whole one on Monday, and I order another one on Thursday, that's for sure eating pizza twice. But if you're clinging to the same pizza, I'm not sure that's eating pizza twice that week. I don't feel like you could say, yeah, I had pizza twice last week, when half of it was from the same pizza and the other half was a different night, but also from the same pizza. Let me know. Number 7. It's from Detroit, and it's called Jets. Jets is a good pizza. It's solid. It does follow the Detroit style pizza. It is square, cooked in a pan or whatever. It doesn't have any other qualities. I don't notice that the dough is necessarily quintessentially Detroit style. Maybe it is. It's just good. I lived in Lansing. I got it a couple times. Oh, it was good. Number 6, you're going to have to go a little bit west of Detroit to go to Cereal City, USA here, Battle Creek, Michigan, for Pizza Sam's. East Columbia. Pizza Sam's, this is going to sound strange, but I can't really describe why I like it so much. It's just a classic pizza where everything is balanced perfectly. There isn't anything necessarily memorable about it, if I get that word out. It's just a perfectly cooked pizza. If you go in to get it, it has like the vintage 1960s Michigan paneling on the walls. There's like a Pac-Man game with pizza grease from 1965 on the joystick. It has this perfect smell. They haven't changed the vintage signs from like the 1940s. It's great. There's something about it that's a perfect balance between the 3 elements, the crust, the sauce, and the cheese. Now, at number 5, I'm going to just put Chicago in quotes because I've had Chicago style pizza, but it's more of the touristy deep dish inversion, and I don't want to make Chicagoans angry. So if you're from Chicago and you have a suggestion for pizza places I should go, tell me. I'm doing Chicago in quotes and not listing a specific place out of respect for the city of Chicago, because I don't feel like I've had the best Chicago pizza. I've been downtown, I've had lots of Chicago pizza. The last time I had it made me sick, but it was the touristy style, and I haven't had the proper thin crust tavern cut style pizza. So I'm going to leave it to Chicagoans. If you're watching this, please comment below, tell me where to go, and I will go there. Number 4, we're going to go back to the Cereal City. They got a lot of good pizza places in that little city, I'm telling you. Sir Pizza. Now, Sir Pizza does a couple of things interesting. They do the tavern style cut, which is interesting because this city it's closer to Detroit, but it's in between Chicago and Detroit, obviously way much closer to Detroit than Chicago. But I wonder if sometimes the tavern style cut, which is what Sir Pizza has, was influenced from Chicago, if that is in fact Chicago style pizza, a characteristic of it. And because if you go closer to Chicago, there are other places like St. Joseph, Michigan has a place called Silver Beach Pizza, and they do a tavern style cut. So I wonder if that had an influence on it. But they do something unique that nobody else does, in my opinion. Everything from the sausage, the pepperoni, the vegetables, it's like diced really small, and they just throw it on there. It looks like there's like 1 million pounds of sausage and pepperoni and peppers and black olives or whatever else. It's so good, folks. I'm knocking it down. When I was a kid, I would say that it was probably in the top 2. They had a location close to me, and it was great, and the oven was like old and all the grease drippings on it, and then they moved locations and they didn't take the oven with them. I think that was a big mistake. All right, now we're getting into the real deal here. Number 3, Buddy's Pizza from Detroit. Now, Buddy's is where Detroit style originated in 1946 at Buddy's Rendezvous Bar. Apparently, that's how legend goes. Buddy's is great. I think it's better than Jets. I think it's very similar to Jets, only better, if you know what I mean. Like, it has all the classic characteristics of that type of pizza, but it's just better. It's hard to say. Like, Jets is really good. When you're getting up to the top 3, we're talking about a matter of inches and seconds here. I'm not sure exactly why. I'm not a chef, but there's enough in Buddy's Pizza to put it over the other ones at number 3. Number 2. Now, this one's going to bring me a lot of heat. I'm taking a chance here, but I think it's honestly the best pizza in Michigan. We're going back to the Cereal City again, folks. That's 3 pizzas in the top 7. I'm telling you, if you go visit Detroit, might be worth a trip west. Penfield Pizza on M66 in Battle Creek. The crust is nothing fancy, right? I can't even tell what it is. If it's thin crust, it's kind of like a crackery crust. It's like there's nothing special about it. The sauce, it's good. What does it for me is the mountains of cheese. And I don't know what they're doing with their cheese. I don't know what's happening there, what sort of magic or voodoo they're doing to the cheese, but it's amazing. Somehow the 3 elements work. And by the way, if I'm going to a pizza place and I'm going to judge whether you do pizza well or not, I'm doing just cheese. That's how you do it. You don't do it any other way. You got to just go with just cheese, because when you start throwing other toppings on there, it doesn't, you got to go classic. to find out if they're doing things structurally well. Number 1, the best pizza I've ever had in my life, the best pizza on earth in my experience, Escape from New York Pizza, Portland, Oregon, Northwest 23rd. It's New York style pizza, which is my preferred style. All I can say is that when I literally take a bite, and even if I'm by myself in there, I'm like, oh, are you tasting this? Something about the sauce is like a little bit spicy. The crust is like, it's hand tossed and it's thin, but it's like not flimsy. But the cheese, I think they're putting a little bit of Parmesan in there. That's my accusation against them in a good way. And again, it comes back to doing just cheese when you're trying to find out if a place is doing things right. I got mushrooms and onions once on there. Wasn't as good. Went back to the cheese, immediately back on top. It's not even close. This is the best pizza I've ever had. It's amazing. All right, folks, that's it. Thank you for joining me. Follow everywhere at Culture Fridays on Twitter, at Pop Culture Fridays on Instagram. Thisiswhereyouare.com is the site. I will see you next week.